I never thought I'd be the one leaking classified police footage. But when you hear a 600-pound creature speak broken English while saving a dying man's life, some secrets are too important to keep buried. My father, Deputy Marcus Chen, captured 47 seconds of body cam footage that the Oregon Sheriff's Department tried to erase. Footage that proves Bigfoot not only exists, but has been quietly protecting lost hikers in the Cascade Forest for decades. But here's what still haunts me every single night. If these creatures have been watching over us this whole time, what are they protecting us from? I'm going to tell you about the last radio call my father ever answered that made sense. It was October 14th, 2019, a Monday. The kind of fall day in Oregon where the air smells like wet pine and the sky goes from blue to gray in about 10 minutes. My dad, Deputy Marcus Chen, had been with the Deschutes County Sheriff's Department for 15 years. He knew those forests better than most people know their own neighborhoods. That morning, he kissed my mom goodbye, made himself 2 eggs and toast, and drove to the station just like always. He had no idea that by nightfall, everything he thought he knew about the world would be completely wrong. The call came in at 5:43 in the evening. The sun was already dropping behind the mountains. Dispatch said an elderly hiker named Robert Walsh hadn't come back from Two Malo Falls Trail. His wife called it in. She said he left that morning with a full pack and a charged phone. Now his phone was going straight to voicemail, and it was getting dark. My dad and his partner, Deputy Amy Rodriguez, took the call. They'd done dozens of these. Usually you find the person within an hour, maybe with a twisted ankle or just lost on the wrong path. They grabbed their gear, checked their radios, and headed out. The drive took 20 minutes. Dad always turned on his body cam as soon as they left the parking lot. That's policy. The little red light blinked on his chest. The timestamp started running in the corner of the footage. 17:59 hours. They parked at the trailhead and started walking. The trail was popular during summer, but by mid-October, most tourists were gone. The path was covered in wet leaves. Their boots made soft crunching sounds. Amy walked ahead with her flashlight, even though there was still some daylight left. Dad followed, scanning the trees on both sides. They called out Walsh's name every few minutes. Nothing answered back except the wind. About half a mile in, Amy stopped. She pointed her light at something on the ground. It was a blue backpack, the expensive kind with lots of pockets. It was just sitting there in the middle of the path, zippers open, contents spilled out. A water bottle, a granola bar wrapper, a map. Dad knelt down and picked up a wallet. Robert Walsh's driver's license was inside. His face looked back from the plastic, smiling. Dad spoke into his radio, found the hiker's pack. No sign of the hiker yet. Continuing search. That's when they saw the campsite. Just off the trail, maybe 30 feet into the trees, there was a small clearing. Someone had set up a tent. The tent was bright orange, easy to spot, but something was wrong. The front flap was wide open. The zippers were pulled from the outside, not the inside. Dad moved closer. His body cam captured everything. The sleeping bag was gone. There was a drag mark in the dirt leading away from the tent, like something heavy had been pulled. The mark went into the darker part of the forest where the trees grew thick together. Amy's voice came out quiet. "Marcus, look at this." She was standing at the edge of the drag mark. Her flashlight was pointed down. There were branches broken at shoulder height, snapped clean. The bark was scraped off in long strips. Whatever made that path was big, and it didn't care about going around things. It went straight through. Dad felt his stomach tighten. He'd seen bear damage before. This wasn't that. Bears don't drag sleeping bags. They rip them apart looking for food. This was something else. They followed the drag marks. The forest got quieter as they went deeper. That's the thing Dad mentioned later that bothered him most. Forests are never really quiet. There's always something. Birds, squirrels, insects buzzing, wind in the leaves. But right then, there was nothing. Just their footsteps and their breathing. Amy noticed it too. She stopped walking and looked up at the trees. "It's too quiet," she said. "Where are the birds?" Dad didn't have an answer. His hand moved closer to his belt, to his gun, without him really thinking about it. The body cam audio picked up something then. It's faint on the recording. You have to turn the volume way up to hear it. A deep breathing sound. not fast like something running, slow, in and out, like something very large was standing very still and just breathing. Dad and Amy both heard it. They stopped moving. Amy's flashlight beam shook a little as she swept it across the trees. Nothing there, just shadows and trunks and darkness filling in the spaces between. Then they found him. Robert Walsh was sitting with his back against the Douglas fir tree. His legs were straight out in front of him. His hands were in his lap. His eyes were open, staring forward into the trees. He didn't blink when their flashlights hit his face. Dad rushed over and knelt down beside him. "Mr. Walsh, can you hear me?" Walsh didn't answer, didn't move. His chest was rising and falling, so he was breathing, but it was like nobody was home behind his eyes. Dad checked him for injuries. No blood, no broken bones. His skin wasn't cold. He was just sitting there like a statue. Amy called for a medevac helicopter on her radio. She gave their coordinates. Then she saw it. She made a small sound, almost like a gasp. Her light was pointed at the ground next to Walsh. There in the soft mud was a print, a handprint, but it was massive. Dad's hand could have fit inside it twice. The fingers were thick. There were 6 of them. Not 5, 6. And the print was pressed deep into the mud like whatever made it weight as much as a refrigerator. Dad pulled out his phone and took 3 pictures before he could talk himself out of it. The print measured 14 inches across. The helicopter was 20 minutes out. Amy stayed on the radio, coordinating the pickup, while Dad stayed next to Walsh. The old man still hadn't moved. His eyes were locked on something in the darkness between the trees. Dad tried talking to him again. "Mr. Walsh, we're here to help you. You're safe now. Can you tell me what happened?" Nothing. It was like talking to a mannequin. Dad checked Walsh's pulse. It was steady but slow. His pupils responded to light. Physically, he seemed okay, but mentally something had shut down. The sky was almost black now. Their flashlights made small circles of white in an ocean of dark. The forest pressed in from all sides. Dad swept his light across the tree line, and that's when he heard it. Footsteps. Heavy ones. Not the quick padding of a deer or the shuffle of a bear. These were slow and deliberate. Thud, thud, thud. Each one hit the ground hard enough that Dad felt it in his chest. The steps were coming from the west, maybe 50 yards out. Amy heard them too. She stopped talking into her radio and turned toward the sound. Her hand went to her gun. The footsteps stopped. The forest went silent again. That awful wrong kind of silent. Dad's body cam was still recording. The timestamp said 18:21 hours. His breathing came faster. He could hear it on the audio, quick and shallow. Amy moved closer to him and Walsh. She pulled her flashlight up and aimed it into the darkness. The beam didn't reach far enough. Whatever was out there was beyond the light. They waited. 30 seconds. A minute. Nothing moved. Then the sound came. It started low, down in a range that Dad felt more than heard. A rumble in his bones. Then it changed. It became a series of clicks and pops, like someone was cracking their knuckles underwater. The clicks were rhythmic. Almost like speech, but not quite. Dad had heard recordings of elk bugling and coyotes yipping and mountain lions screaming. This was none of those. This sounded like something trying to form words with a mouth that wasn't built for it. The clicking went on for 10 seconds. Then it stopped. Amy's voice came out as a whisper. "What the hell was that?" Dad didn't answer because he didn't know. He stood up slowly, his hand on his gun but not drawing it yet. Protocol for unknown wildlife contact said to make yourself big, make noise, back away slowly. He was about to do that when Walsh spoke. "Don't shoot." The words came out rough and quiet. Dad almost jumped. He looked down. Walsh's eyes were still staring forward, but his mouth was moving. "Don't shoot him. He was protecting me." Before Dad could ask what that meant, the thing in the forest moved. The body cam caught it. There's a moment at 18:22 and 14 seconds where something crosses through the background about 30 feet away. It moves from right to left behind a cluster of pine trees. The shape is huge, easily 8 feet tall. The shoulders are so wide they block out the trees behind them. The movement is smooth and fast, not like a bear's lumber, more like how a person walks but scaled up and impossibly large. Dad's flashlight beam catches part of it. just for a second. Dark reddish-brown hair covering what looks like a torso, an arm as thick as a man's thigh swinging as it walks. Amy saw it too. She drew her gun. "Sheriff's Department, stop right there!" Her voice cracked on the last word. The thing didn't stop. It took 3 more steps. Each one shook the ground. Thud, thud, thud. Now it was closer. Maybe 15 feet away. Still in the shadows, but Dad could make out a shape. Massive legs, a barrel chest. The body cam footage shows Dad raising his own gun with shaking hands. His flashlight was mounted under his barrel. When he lifted it, the light swept up. What the light showed made Dad's breath catch in his throat. The creature was standing still now, facing them. The beam lit up its chest and part of one arm. The hair was thick and matted with bits of leaves and dirt. The chest rose and fell with slow breaths. The arm hung at its side, easily 6 feet long from shoulder to hand. The hand had fingers, 4 thick ones and a thumb, maybe 6 inches long each. The muscles underneath the hair shifted as it breathed. This wasn't a costume. No human body moved like that. The sheer mass of it was wrong. 600 pounds at least. Maybe more. Dad's training kicked in. "Stop. Get on the ground now." His voice didn't sound like his own. It sounded small and scary. The creature didn't get on the ground. It took 1 step forward. The light caught more of it now, the upper chest, the thick neck, and then, for just a moment, part of its face. The brow was heavy. The eyes were deep set and dark. They reflected the flashlight beam like an animal's eyes, but the shape of them was different. Rounder, almost human. The mouth was closed, but Dad could see the jaw was powerful and wide. Amy was shouting now, "Don't move! Stay where you are!" Her gun was up and aimed at the center mass. The creature's head turned slightly toward her. Then it opened its mouth. The sound that came out froze both deputies in place. It started as a low rumble. Then words formed. Broken and strange, but words. "Human." The voice was so deep it vibrated in Dad's chest. "Safe. Go." 3 words. Slow and deliberate, like each one cost enormous effort. Walsh spoke again from behind them. His voice was stronger now. "I told you, don't shoot." He was protecting me. Dad didn't lower his gun, but he didn't fire either. The creature looked at Walsh, then back at Dad and Amy. It took 1 step backward, then another. The darkness swallowed it up. They heard its footsteps moving away. Thud, 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 getting fainter. Then the forest sounds came back all at once. Crickets, an owl somewhere, the wind in the branches. It was like someone had pressed play again on the whole world. The helicopter landed 12 minutes later in a clearing a quarter mile away. The medics loaded Walsh onto a stretcher. He was talking by then, answering basic questions, his name, the date, where he was. But his eyes still had that faraway look, like part of him was still back in those trees. Dad and Amy rode with him to the hospital in Bend. Neither of them talked much during the drive. Dad kept replaying what he saw in his head, the size of it, the eyes, the voice. "Human. Safe. Go." Those 3 words rattled around in his skull like marbles in a can. At the hospital, Walsh was checked over by doctors. Mild dehydration, some scrapes and bruises, a swollen ankle but not broken. Otherwise, he was fine. Physically fine anyway. They kept him overnight for observation. The next morning, 2 detectives from the department came to take his statement. Dad wasn't supposed to be there, but he asked if he could sit in. The detectives said, "Okay." They gathered in a small room with yellow walls and fluorescent lights that buzzed. Walsh sat in the bed wearing a hospital gown. He looked tired, but his eyes were clearer now. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe. I don't want you missing out on tomorrow's new Bigfoot story. Thanks for watching. "Tell us what happened yesterday," one detective said. "Start from the beginning." Walsh took a sip of water from a plastic cup. His hands shook a little. "I went hiking like I always do on Mondays. Got to the trailhead around 9 in the morning. Weather was nice. I walked about 2 miles in and set up my tent in that clearing. I was going to stay the night, do some photography at sunset." He paused and looked at his hands. "Around 4 in the afternoon, I decided to scout for good photo spots. I went off trail. Stupid, I know. I wasn't paying attention and I stepped wrong coming down a slope. Rolled my ankle bad. Fell maybe 10 feet down an embankment. Walsh's voice got quieter. I couldn't walk. Tried to stand up and the pain was too much. My phone had fallen out of my pocket somewhere in the leaves. Couldn't find it. I started yelling for help, but nobody was around. I knew I was in trouble. It was getting dark and cold. I thought I might be spending the night down there. Then I heard something big moving through the brush above me. Branches breaking. Heavy footsteps. I thought it was a bear. I went real still and quiet. But it wasn't a bear. What was it? The detective asked. Walsh looked right at Dad when he answered. It was a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it. I know how that sounds. The detective wrote something in his notebook without changing his expression. Go on, Walsh nodded. It came down the slope, walked right up to me. I was terrified. This thing was huge, taller than any man, covered in reddish-brown hair. It smelled like wet dog and dirt and something else I can't describe. It looked at me for a long moment, just stared. Then it reached down and picked me up. Picked you up, the detective repeated. Yes, like I weighed nothing. It put one arm under my back and one under my knees, like you'd carry a child. Its hands were enormous. I could feel the strength in them. But it was gentle. It carried me back up the embankment and set me down against a tree near my camp. Then it just stayed there, sitting a few feet away, watching me. I tried talking to it a few times. Thank you, I'm hurt. Can you help me get to my car? It didn't answer, just made these low sounds, clicks and rumbles. But I got the feeling it understood me, at least partly. Walsh drank more water. As it got dark, I heard coyotes in the distance, getting closer. I've been hiking these woods for 20 years. I know coyotes don't usually bother people, but I was hurt and alone, and they could probably smell that. The creature heard them too. It stood up and moved between me and the direction the sounds were coming from. Then it did something I'll never forget. It roared, not like a bear, deeper, louder. It shook my whole body. Then it picked up rocks and threw them. I heard them crashing through the brush. The coyotes went silent. They didn't come any closer. The creature sat back down and stayed with me all night. I dozed off a few times. Every time I woke up, it was still there, still watching. Around sunset the next day, I heard voices. Your deputies are calling my name. The creature heard them too. It stood up and made a sound, like it was calling back to them. Then it touched my shoulder, just once. Its hand was so big it covered my whole shoulder and part of my chest. Then it walked away into the trees. Your deputies found me maybe 2 minutes later. Walsh stopped talking and looked at each person in the room. I know what I saw. I know what happened. That thing saved my life. Dad and Amy were sent back to the station to file their reports. Before they did, the sergeant pulled them into his office. He closed the door and asked to see the body cam footage. Dad handed over the camera. The sergeant plugged it into his computer and watched. Dad and Amy stood there in silence. The sergeant watched the whole thing, all 47 seconds of the encounter. He watched it again, then a third time. His face didn't show anything. When he was done, he unplugged the camera and handed it back to Dad. This doesn't leave this room, the sergeant said. Understand? What do you mean, Amy asked. I mean, we're not releasing this footage. We're not talking about it outside this department. The official report is going to say you found Walsh alive and well after he injured himself hiking. Large bear spotted in the area. That's it. But Sarge, Amy started. He cut her off. Do you know what happens if this gets out? We'll have every hunter and lunatic with a gun flooding those woods looking for a trophy. We'll have news crews and tourists and people getting lost trying to find this thing. Someone will get hurt or killed. Our job is to protect people. This does not protect people. Dad spoke up quietly. What about the truth? The sergeant looked at him for a long moment. Sometimes the truth causes more problems than it solves. You file your reports as I described. You don't talk about this with anyone, not your families, not your friends, nobody. That's an order. Dad wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just nodded. Amy did too. They filed their reports that afternoon. Large bear. The hiker recovered safely. Standard search and rescue operation. The body cam footage was uploaded to the department server and marked confidential. Restricted access only. But before Dad turned in his camera, he did something. He transferred the footage to his personal laptop at home. Just 47 seconds. He told himself he was keeping it as insurance, as proof that he wasn't crazy. He hid the file in a folder buried deep in his computer. He didn't watch it. He tried to forget about it. For 6 months, he almost succeeded. 6 months after the Walsh incident, Dad started forgetting things. Small things at first. Where he put his keys, what day of the week it was, the name of a street he'd driven down 1,000 times. Mom noticed it before he did. She made him see a doctor. The doctor ran tests, brain scans, memory tests, blood work. The results came back in April of 2020, early onset Alzheimer's disease. Dad was 43 years old. The doctor said it was rare but not unheard of. He said there was no cure, only medications that might slow it down. Maybe. He gave Dad 5 to 10 years before things got really bad. Maybe less. Dad took the news hard. He stopped sleeping well. He'd wake up in the middle of the night and pace around the house. Mom would find him sitting at the kitchen table at 3 in the morning, just staring at nothing. He was scared. Anyone would be. The idea of losing yourself piece by piece while you're still alive is terrifying. He started making lists of things he wanted to do while he still could, places he wanted to see, things he wanted to say to people, and he kept coming back to that night in the forest. The creature, the footage, the secret he'd been told to keep. One night in October, exactly 1 year after the Walsh rescue, Dad went into his office and dug out the old laptop. He found the file buried in his folder. He plugged in headphones and watched the footage again. All 47 seconds. He watched it 5 times in a row. Then he sat back in his chair and thought about what it meant. Here was proof that something incredible existed. Something that didn't hurt people. Something that helped them. And it was locked away on a server where no one would ever see it. He thought about dying with that secret, thought about the disease eating away at his memories until maybe one day he wouldn't even remember that night at all. That felt wrong. That felt like a waste. He made his decision that night. He was going to leak the footage. He spent the next 2 weeks figuring out how to do it safely. He didn't want to get fired or arrested. He still had a family to support for as long as he could. He found websites that let you upload files anonymously, encrypted sites that didn't track who posted what. He wrote a statement to go with the video. Short and simple. This is Deputy Marcus Chen, badge number 4729. This footage is real. It was recorded on October 14th, 2019, near Tamalo Falls in Oregon. What you're about to see is real. This happened. We were wrong about them. On October 20th, 2020, he uploaded the file. Then he waited. The video spread slowly at first. A few hundred views, then a few thousand. Within 3 days, it had gone viral. News sites picked it up. People on social media shared it. Bigfoot researchers analyzed every frame. Skeptics called it fake. Believers said it was the best evidence ever captured. The video was everywhere. Dad didn't tell anyone it was him who leaked it. Not even Mom. He just watched it spread and felt something like relief. The department figured it out within a week. The statement Dad wrote included his badge number. They pulled him into the chief's office. The chief was angry, asked him why he did it. Dad told him the truth. Because people deserve to know. Because I'm losing my mind and I wanted this to matter before I'm gone. The chief didn't fire him. Maybe he felt sorry for Dad. Maybe he understood. But he suspended him for 2 weeks without pay. He also made a public statement saying the video had been manipulated, that Dad was experiencing a medical crisis, that the department stood by its original report of a bear sighting. Most of the major platforms pulled the video down after that, said it violated policies about misinformation. But Dad had made copies. Other people had too. The video lived on in corners of the internet, on small sites and forums. People still talked about it, still analyzed it. Dad didn't care that the department denied it. He'd done what he needed to do. He went back to work after his suspension, finished out the year, retired early in January of 2021. The disease was progressing faster than the doctors expected. By his last day, he sometimes forgot the names of people he'd worked with for years. At home, he started doing something strange. He'd go out to the forest near our house, not Tumalo Falls. He couldn't go back there, but other woods, quiet places. He'd bring a bag of apples. He'd leave them at the base of a tree and then walk away and wait. He did this every week. Mom asked him why. He said he was leaving gift. For who, she asked. For them, he said. To say thank you, to say I'm sorry. Mom didn't push it. She let him have his ritual. Sometimes Dad told me the creature visited him. He'd wake up at night and hear clicking sounds outside his window. 3 knocks on the siding. In the morning, he'd find things on the porch. 3 stones stacked on top of each other, perfectly balanced. A feather, a pine cone arranged just so. Mom thought he was imagining it because of the disease. But I checked the doorbell camera once. There was footage from 2 in the morning. Just darkness and the sound of something large moving. 3 soft knocks, then silence. In the morning, there were the stones. I didn't tell Mom. I didn't know what it meant. Dad got worse through 2021 and 2022. Forgot more and more. Needed help with basic things. But he never forgot the creature. Even when he couldn't remember my name or Mom's name, he remembered that night. He'd tell the story over and over, about the handprint in the mud, about the voice. Human, safe, go. It was locked in his brain deeper than anything else, like it mattered more than his own life. He died in March of 23, pneumonia. His body was tired from fighting the disease. We buried him on a cold gray day with rain coming down. At his funeral, Amy Rodriguez came. She hugged me and Mom and said Dad was the bravest person she ever worked with. She said what happened that night changed her, made her see the world differently. She said she believed him. She always had. After Dad died, I went through his computer, found all his files, found recordings he'd made, little videos talking to the camera, explaining things while he still could. In one of them, dated December 22, he looked tired. His words came slowly, but he smiled. I've been back to those woods 4 times, he said. I leave apples. I leave water. I will never see him again. But sometimes, late at night, I hear that clicking sound outside my window. I check my doorbell camera the next morning. There's always a stone stacked on my porch. 3 stones, perfectly balanced. He's checking on me now, the way he checked on Walsh. We're not alone out there. And maybe that's not a bad thing. I'm sharing this now because it's what Dad wanted. The original body cam files are still on his laptop. I have them. The department never asked for the computer back. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they didn't want to deal with it. I don't know, no. What I know is my father saw something real. Something that shouldn't exist but does. And it wasn't a monster. It was something else. Something we don't have a word for yet. Last month I drove out to Tumalo Falls. There's a new sign at the trailhead now. Big yellow letters. Wildlife activity, extreme caution, travel in groups. I walked the trail to the spot where they found Walsh. I stood there for a long time. Listened to the forest. It was quiet. That same wrong kind of quiet Dad described. Then I heard it, faint and far away. 3 knocks on wood. I waited, but nothing else came. Just wind and trees and the feeling of being watched. I left 3 apples at the base of a tree and walked back to my car. I don't know if anyone found them. I'd like to think someone did.